I'm not reading whatever bullshit that the author that you linked came from. I'm reading the source material, and that's what it says the results are. No, I'm not. You decided to link me something you didn't even read. You're intellectually bankrupt. You're a fucking loser, man. What are you doing? Well, no, stop. What are you doing?
It looks like what I did was made a mistake here by suggesting
no,
that the JAMA link
you
was
didn't
actually...
you didn't make a mistake. You didn't read what you linked me. You didn't read what the fuck you linked me. In waiting room? Is this you, J Mac? That's you? Is this you? Yeah, I'm assuming it's you. Hello. Okay. Hello. What's going on, dude? What are we doing? Stop changing rooms. Are you there? Hello?
There we go. We here?
Yeah.
You can hear?
Yeah, I can hear.
All right. So what are you sweating about? What are you sweating me here for?
Just you came into. What are you doing, man?
Sorry about that. I'm not sure. It dropped me out of there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand I have a shitty mic, so you have to.
I don't really care too much about the mic. I care about the moving of rooms. Okay, so the problem is, as soon as we started talking about abortion, you seem to be freaking out on everyone, including me, inside of the chat. That was the main problem. Two.
Freaking out. I mean,
yes,
that's one way to put it. I guess, responding in a rational, calm, ordinary manner is perceived as freaking out here. That's a little unusual.
Okay, do you really need me to bring up your logs?
Yeah, go right ahead. I mean,
okay.
You'll see the first several messages I posted in here this morning were pretty calm, making fun of some other silly comments in here, posting links, responding explicitly to your comments. I'm not sure what you're sweating it for.
Okay, sure. Let me take a look at some of your logs. At the start of the day. Jesus, you posted a lot today.
I type fast.
So you started with, sorry, Rova, this is a bogus narrative you are repeating about pro-life people allegedly not supporting life after birth.
Yeah. I mean,
what was I supporting? Hold on. What was I supporting?
What was it? To be pro-abortion, have to attribute these kind of like malign motivations to your opponents and pretend that they just don't care.
Are you going to let me respond? Are you going to let me ask my question?
Fire away. Okay.
In what way do Republicans support life after birth?
Is that a serious question?
Yes. In what way do Republicans support life after birth?
We're not throwing them in the trash like you pro-abortionists want to do.
So I'll ask again, because it's a very witty way for you to just throw whataboutism out there. In what way do Republicans support life after birth?
We let children be born and we care for them. There you go.
How do you care for them?
We raise them.
So hold on. What you're saying to me is if I have a kid, you're going to raise my kid because you're a Republican.
Why am I going to raise your kid?
Okay, so who is the Republican? Okay, what is the Republicans doing? Can you give me one way that Republicans are supporting life after birth?
Yeah, we pay taxes. We pass laws protecting human lives.
What do you mean you pay taxes? What is that? How does paying taxes support kids? Life after birth.
They pay for social services.
So you're advocating. You're advocating
programs. Schools.
Great. So you're advocating. Excuse you. You're going off the handle. You're for a very reasonable man. You seem to be going off the handle. Sure, they don't support social programs such as child tax credits. They don't support. No, you do not. Hold up. Can you provide me the leading Republican right now that is supporting a child tax credit? I can provide you the Republicans that are striking down a child tax. Excuse you. You just asked me a question. Excuse you. You just asked me a question. I'm answering it to the fullest. I have multiple different Republicans recently striking down a child tax credit that Joe Biden has proposed. I have multiple different Republicans striking down the idea of maternity leave for women. I've all of those bits of evidence to be able to.
Tax credit? Which one?
Joe Biden.
Part of the American Rescue Plan?
Yeah, yes, as well as a part of the the industrial, the $1 trillion plan that Joe Biden was putting forward to be able to support.
The Republicans who are not attempting to write out of the law existing child tax credits, either at the federal level or at the state level, that just doesn't count, right? You're gonna piss and moan about being opposed rightly to the American Rescue Plan, which actually didn't do very much for very many people at all anyway, because a small component of that was an additional child tax credit, and that is your example of Republicans not caring.
Can you provide? No, I'm not. Can you provide? I'll go back to question one then. Can you? No. Can you provide me? Can you provide me? Yeah. The point is that you came in here and you disagreed with the statement that I made. No, that's not. So the onus of it. Do you understand how the onus of proof works, right?
Your narrative.
Hold on. For a very calm man, you seem to be constantly jittery. I don't know if you need to. Do you need to? Okay, go ahead.
Where you pick on
Keep going.
Like one element of the American Rescue Plan, and then ignore 25 years of support, and not only support but passing child tax credits.
Are you done?
Are you done? Ignore that.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, why are you ignoring that? Please explain that.
Are you done?
Please explain that.
Okay, so the reason why I stated that the Republicans are not doing anything. Okay, go ahead. No, keep going. I'm sorry I interrupted you with my response. Are you done?
Are you going to explain why you are ignoring 25 years of support in passing these child tax credits?
Are you done?
I'm done with that question. I'll see if you answer it, though.
Okay, so the reason why Okay, so you're not done. All right, go ahead.
I'm just waiting for your answer.
Are you going to let me speak?
If you're going to answer the question, yeah.
Okay, so the reason why I made the statement that I did about Republicans not supporting children after birth is because Republicans have not pushed for any strong social welfare programs, talking about child tax credits, talking about maternity leave, talking about anything that would actually support children after they are born. They have not done that. And in fact, when Democrats have tried to push any of these things, they've struck them down or not supported them. So I feel confident in the statement, as well as I believe it is empirically true, that Republicans do not support life after birth at all. They try to say they have the semblance, the veil of caring about kids when they're being born and after birth, but they have no semblance of care for it. They don't support any policy. They don't support any of that. Your example of them support, their policy support is not striking down active policy, which can simply be brushed away by the fact of something called the political play, which is they can only focus on a certain amount of things. They're not going to focus on everything all at once. Excuse you. I wasn't done. Excuse you. I was not done. Okay, so they can only focus on a couple of things. So right now, what is prominently available or prominently on their plate is right now the Don't Say Gay bill. You have trans people inside of athletics predominantly right now. The hot topic is swimming. And then we also have this on abortion. These are three really big issues that Republicans are currently focusing on. So there you go. Would you like to respond to any of what I just said?
Okay, I am. See, the bullshit narrative that you're pushing right now is that Republicans don't support any of this stuff because they don't vote the way you insist that they should vote. And your line is an arbitrary bullshit line. For example, when you have senators like Joni Ernst and Mike Lee who propose the Cradle Act in Congress for paid maternity leave, right? For paid leave benefits to raise children, you just ignore that. You ignore it because you're ignorant. And you rely on a completely ideological basis to create these fake narratives. That's all it is. Furthermore, Republicans have passed and continue to support the expansion of child tax credits. But again, you will lie about that. You will lie either out of omission or out of ignorance. Now that has been proven twice in two explicit examples. So don't give me this bullshit that Republicans don't support any of these. No, I'm not done.
Okay, keep going.
Don't present this bullshit that Republicans don't support any effort to care for children after they're born. Third, and further, that you can support, for example, through community social services that don't require government intervention. And so you completely forget about the Republicans' very strong support for religious organizations and other community-based organizations, right, with their voluntarily or volunteer contributions to these organizations to support women. You forget about the pregnancy crisis centers that are filled with Republicans and conservatives volunteering their time to care for women and their newborn children in their neighborhood. So you are absolutely full of shit. You ignore it either out of intentional ignorance or out of spiteful omission. And either way, it's bad faith.
Are you done?
Now deal with that.
Are you done?
Are you finished?
Are you gonna calm down?
Hey, I'm calm. I'm calm, buddy.
Really?
I'm raising my voice the same way that you're raising your voice. So don't pretend that somehow I am acting
No, go ahead. Keep going.
surprisingly different from yourself.
Keep going.
So let's go. Deal with the facts.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay,
Deal with
great.
The facts.
Okay, so let's start with this. If Republicans love helping children so much, why didn't they do any? Okay, okay, so you're not done. So keep going. So go ahead. So go ahead. Then just keep going. Jesus, you're an incredibly calm and rational person that wants a two-way conversation here. But go ahead.
You're not going to deal with Republican proposals for paid leave for parents. You're not going to deal with Republicans and conservatives and being active in their communities through social and community organizations as well as religious organizations to support women and their newborn children. You're not going to deal with any one of those three. Instead, you're going to launch into yet another fake narrative. You're going to present yet another false pretense about the motivations of Republicans, and all for what? For what? For what? What are you standing up here for? Unlimited abortion. That's what you're going to do. You're going to impugn the people you disagree with so that you can stand on top of an unjustifiable standard of unlimited abortion.
Are you going to calm down and let me respond to anything that you've said?
Calm.
So you're going to actually
okay,
so no, just go ahead and keep going.
Yes, I'm holding you to account
Good,
to actually address the points I raised rather than
being very calm and rational, having
narrative.
this two-way conversation. Just keep going. I'm sure you love the sound of your own voice.
Until you actually address the points that are raised and not do your usual tippy-toe dance around nonsense, I'm going to hold you to account. So I've given you three areas. Are you going to address any one of those three? Or are you going to launch into yet another pretend narrative?
No, I'm going to explain to you the process that I was going to.
Why you're faking a narrative.
Keep going, dude.
Yeah, I'm holding you to
No,
account.
keep going.
Deal with
just
Deal
keep
with
it
the
up.
points. I can repeat the points if you missed
Okay. So are you gonna let me speak?
You can speak if you are going to actually address the points made.
I am going to address the original point that we came in here for. You asked me with what basis am I using to identify that the Republican Party is not doing anything for children after birth?
And I've given you three examples of where they are. And
no, you didn't, because none of those were actually passed. You didn't give me any legislation that was passed. You gave me a legislation that was... Excuse you. Are you going to let me respond? Excuse you, sir. Excuse you. Excuse you. Excuse you. Excuse you. No, excuse you. You just got done talking for like 6 minutes. Excuse you. I cannot have a conversation like this. We cannot have a back and forth like this. You understand that what is happening right now, right? You are constantly ranting. Do you know how long you've been talking over me right now? Just let me make a point before you go off and you get upset and you try and make your own point 9,000 times longer than I'm able to speak, okay? Don't get too upset. I promise you'll have your turn to speak. Okay, so my whole point of addressing that Republicans are not doing anything and me asking you anything that Republicans have done for children after birth is that I don't believe they have passed any significant legislation at all to the effect of helping any kid for life after birth. This has not happened. Your example that you gave me was something that you only quoted 2 senators proposing that didn't even pass. There was no actual passing of it. It didn't meet bar. There was no, even when the Republicans had control, of the Senate and the House, there was no passing of legislation. The legislation that you're proposing was so ubiquitously loved amongst the Republican Party. We saw none of it. We see Democrats actively trying right now to get these legislations passed, to make sure that children have a better environment to grow up in after birth. But we see constantly Republicans trying to strike this down. I don't know how you could say in good faith that Republicans are even comparable to Democrats when it comes to life after birth care.
That's because it's bullshit to suggest that the only way to demonstrate a commitment to life after birth is to actually pass laws. Okay? Because we all know, for example, the new Green Deal. Are we really going to say that the Democrats care nothing about the environment because they couldn't get the new Green Deal passed? Of course not. That's a stupid argument. Even with the broad support for the new Green Deal, that it couldn't get passed does not mean that those Democrats are not actually committed to it. That's stupid reasoning. You get that. Meanwhile, we don't have Republicans trying to overturn and repeal existing laws. We do have Republicans, though, proposing and attempting to enact new laws. In addition to the Cradle Act, there was also the New Parents Act from Marco Rubio and Mitt Romney. Okay? We also have an expansion of FEMLA benefits to include small businesses that were not included. Right? So this nonsense that, oh, well, hey, now really the standard isn't just so much that Republicans propose new legislation.
No, that was never the standard.
But that the new
You're mistaken.
They haven't actually.
Well, you must.
Anything,
so this is why perhaps your lack of ability to look at this in a calm fashion is causing you. Excuse me. Your lack of ability to look at this in a calm fashion is maybe obscuring your ability to understand my argument. Ever since the beginning, what was the very first question I asked you? What did the Republican Party, excuse you,
I've demonstrated that bullshit.
Excuse you, what has the Republican Party done for life after birth? Not what have they proposed, because we can propose whatever we want. We could talk about the Green New Deal and how much of that was bullshit, just trying to virtue signal, so that way people could see how bad the environmental problems were and how unrealistic half of it was until it got revised and revised and revised and revised. We could talk about that endlessly if we'd like. But that's separate. We're talking about what they tangibly have passed, and you have yet to provide any grounded example. You gave some example of people showing up to.
I believe that passing laws is necessary to demonstrate a commitment.
That
all
is
understand
ridiculous.
what the political process is.
No, that is ridiculous.
Not every bill, good intentioned or not, will actually pass, and that it fails to pass doesn't actually undermine the motivations or the intent of Republicans generally.
So what you're saying to me,
what you're really trying to say is that elected Republicans have not successfully passed broad expansions of either child tax credits or paid parental leave, right, which would demonstrate to you a commitment to life after birth. Meanwhile, Republicans and conservatives across the country, tens of millions of them, contribute to their local social and community organizations, religious organizations. They volunteer their time. Right?
That's of no consequence to me.
So when you say Republicans, what you're really saying is that there is a small number of elected Republicans that haven't done things that you think are necessary to demonstrate a commitment. Meanwhile, tens of millions of Republicans are actually doing something on the ground.
Can I interject with this?
Protecting life after birth.
Because there are.
Can I ignore that because you're scoring a cheap.
You made like 9. You're trying yourself at that. I can guarantee you. So when you're talking and you're appealing to this nebulous idea of a bunch of Republicans actively doing charity work, I can do all the same with leftists. I could talk about Republicans that are actively trying to. Excuse you. I let you speak. Excuse you. All right, so we could talk. Excuse you. It's amazing that you keep doing this and you think that it's decent.
Because I'm holding your points.
Excuse you. Are you going to keep getting upset and interrupting me? Is this what's going to happen? Is this going to be the?
Interrupt you.
Then it's a perfectly rational and reasonable thing for people to constantly interrupt another individual when they're having a calm, reasonable conversation.
Happens all the time in these forums. Don't act all surprised.
It's absolutely not. You could pull from multiple conversations that I've had over multiple times. This kind of a back and forth is not reasonable. Many people there was a culture of people muting under circumstances like this. I've avoided muting you because I do not like muting the people that I'm talking to. I think if it gets to a point of muting, you should just end the conversation altogether. But there's been multiple people advocating for muting as a result of that.
Real quick, Relly. My apologies then. You're absolutely right. I have been unreasonable in interrupting you and not giving you a chance to fully express your point and jumping on under the underlying points you're making or implication of drawing. That's my bad, and I apologize for that.
Okay, cool. So moving forward, we should I don't think that we should just be allowed to say whatever stuff that we want and just continue on and make like 9 different points. So let's try and stop each other when we feel like a point is made. And when we stop each other, let's synthesize what the point is, then agree that there's a point made, and then have a discussion as to that point. Because otherwise I'm going to keep talking for 9 minutes, lay out 9 different points, and then you're going to have to go through each one, and we're going to have a back and forth. Okay, so let's start with this. I'll lay out what I believe to be one point here. I do not believe you crediting Republicans as doing personal on-the-ground work is sufficient when talking about care for people, care for children, life after birth, or they're caring for their life after birth. And the reason why is because I am talking about legislation. I'm talking about not individual action, because we could always appeal to it that way. Every single person supports everything. Every group supports everything with that line of logic, because I can find one person or even a group of people that support anything, right? I could find, Christians that hate gay marriage, love gay marriage, love, whatever I want. If I want to appeal to a certain group of people volunteering that also share a category. So I would instead appeal to the idea that there are Republicans actively trying to demonetize and disenfranchise Planned Parenthood as an example of Republicans obscuring actively the ability for women and children to get proper health care and medical care when it comes to life pre and after birth. What would be your response to that?
I think you're intentionally limiting this to successfully passing legislation because it gives you a rhetorical talking point, and that's all it is. It's not an effective talking point, even because when we look at Republicans attempting to expand child tax credit, when we look at Republicans but introducing legislation like those examples that I provided, whether or not they get passed or not, but that they are introducing these things, this doesn't demonstrate sufficiently that Republicans don't care, as you say, or are not trying to do anything about taking care of children once they're born. Okay, and so it's your rhetorical point just doesn't work. It fails because we see Republicans in politics, both at the federal level and at the state level, proposing legislation. Right? We see them trying to expand existing law. We see them working on regulations, for example, like FEMLA, trying to expand it to smaller businesses that have less than 50 employees. So again, it fails even as a rhetorical point, but that's all it is. It's a rhetorical point based on a false narrative. So meanwhile, is it not possible though, really, that
hold on. Okay,
Republicans could think, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to respond to that because we have a difference here. Because you've targeted and isolated a problem that we are having. I agree with the sentiment of your idea that there could be a desire amongst Republicans to do something about child tax credits or giving support to life after birth. There could be. The problem is this doesn't manifest. And I am personally very unsympathetic to people that have arguments about, well, they're trying or they're in essence or this. I don't care. They're politicians. They're meant to get things done. They're not meant to show how woke they are. This is one of the primary disagreements I have, even though I'm on the left, with AOC, was especially at the beginning of her political career, was very much focused on trying to pass very ideologically bold things that never actually got done. Right? I'm not saying she didn't believe in the things she was advocating for. What I'm saying is the things that she was advocating for never got done because she wasn't playing ball. Why would I care about Republicans saying that they want child tax credits if it never actually gets done? But when Democrats talk about these things, they seem to, not always, and not frequently, especially recently, but sometimes absolutely get it done. They put it up on a higher priority, they get the practical into effect, and they actually get it done in comparison to Republicans. I care about what happens, not what people say they do, but what people do. I care about actions. Your response?
So first, I think it's a nonsense argument to make that, let's see how to best word this. I think it's nonsensical to argue that you can only care about children after birth if you follow, adhere to, align with, or otherwise support a democratic political platform or set of political ideas, concepts, or even the laws that they propose. Okay, whether or not children are deserving of state protection, right, is a question that doesn't matter whether or not you align yourself with democratic proposed laws.
Okay,
Right?
so I just need to
Or
interject
their
quickly.
vision.
I agree that if you're a Republican, I'm not saying you instantly no longer have. That's what I agreed with at the beginning of my statement. You could be a Republican that genuinely wants the betterment for children, for children's lives and things like that. I could make two different appeals. One, that you're too ignorant to understand how that would actually go when it comes to making abortion illegal, or I can make two, maybe that you are genuinely for child tax credits, for providing maternity leave and things like that. You are actually materially for those things, and you are a Republican otherwise, since you identify as a Republican. I can identify that, but when I'm talking about what Republicans have done, I'm isolating specifically politicians. It was the first question I asked you, what have Republicans done to help life after birth? That's what I'm looking for, not what they might have wanted to do.
Done. What you've done, though, is said, well, it doesn't matter. You're not really asking what they've done. You're asking what specific laws have been enacted, or to supplement that, have been expanded. That's what you're really asking.
Yeah, because that's what politicians do. Wait, hold on. You wouldn't say that Democrats got the Green New Deal in place, right? Because it was just proposed? So if I say to you right now, the Democrats got the Green New Deal done, would you not be confused by the fact that it wasn't passed?
Right, but this is not an analogous or comparable situation. What you're saying is that Republicans don't care about babies once they're born because
because they don't do anything
about it. Shifted on this, but you argue that you didn't, because they haven't actually enacted laws that you think demonstrate a commitment to life after birth.
Yeah, that I believe, and yes, and I believe what I think can be demonstrated.
What politicians are supposed to do.
Yes.
And absent that, then they're not really doing anything.
Correct.
And I would agree to some extent.
That is their job to do that.
Laws. Yeah. But on the other hand, I would also argue that enacting a law, right, notwithstanding the president signing it, right, even getting a law passed, right, is a whole bunch of sausage making, and that you can't question somebody's motives to or commitment to wanting to support and supporting life after birth because a specific law or set of laws was not enacted.
I absolutely can. Why not? Because they're effective at pushing different policy. Why can't they be effective at pushing something that Democrats are effective at pushing? As little as they do, because I will argue that Democrats do not push it as often as I would like them to.
Okay, well, then let's do this then. So am I right then to argue there was the Born Alive Act that I linked to earlier that protects abortion survivors, right? Babies that survive an abortion, right? And this followed on the heels of Kermit Gosnell, and there's a whole movie about him killing hundreds of babies and many of them after they were born alive, right? Just leaving them to be discarded on a tray and die over in a corner. Okay, so Born Alive Act is proposed by Republicans in Congress. 48 Democratic senators opposed it, actually filibustered it. Would you then agree with me? Democrats are not interested in protecting babies that are born alive after a botched abortion.
So in this instance, based on what you linked me and what I read from an actual reputable source, I don't know what you're referring to. I would not agree with this, because the response to this was a bill that was proposed that was protecting women from getting prosecuted as a result of babies dying after birth. So the example that they gave, I'm not sure if you were here while that was happening, but a mother dying or driving in a car recklessly, right? Driving in a car recklessly and negligently, albeit, getting in a car crash while pregnant could be charged with murder or manslaughter, and that they wanted to push a bill that said that wouldn't necessarily be the case. Or like if they had taken some kind of they had alcohol or something like that, too much alcohol, and it resulted in the kid dying after birth, that they shouldn't be able to be prosecuted for murder or manslaughter.
That's what you're saying. that was one specific component of the law. The primary intent of the law, which is why what you were referring to here is buried down in like subsection C of this thing. But nonetheless,
No, it said that was the whole bill. That was
no,
what
it
it
wasn't the
was.
whole bill, because the whole bill actually starts off with degree of care required, immediate admission to a hospital. The point of the bill is that an infant born alive after an abortion, right, is entitled to all protections of laws, and in addition, that any healthcare practitioner, right, must exercise the same degree of skill, care, diligence to preserve the life and health of the child, right, as they would for any other patient. That's why this law was passed, to ensure that babies that were born alive after an abortion actually were cared for and not just set aside on a tray over in the corner or in a closet, which this bill arose from these specific instances. Okay, that one component of it means that the mother may not be prosecuted under this section. That's a component of the law. The thrust of the law, though, is protecting babies. It is ensuring they get proper health care once they are born. Right? So, my question again then, 48 Democratic senators filibustered and opposed this law, in addition to a whole bunch of other activist groups and interest groups out there who opposed it as well. But these 48 filibustered and opposed it. Using your rationale, your logic, your approach to this, I could reasonably say then, you know what? Democrats just don't care about babies once they're born. They actually support negligence in caring for those babies once they're born, and advocate and support allowing them to die over in the corner unattended to.
So here's my problem. So here's my problem. You can use, because I agree, you can use the framework of my logic in whatever way that you would like, because it all comes down to the knowledge that we have with the understanding of what it means for care after a child is born. I would have to read the bill specifically you were referring to, so I feel like that's beside the point. What we're referring to primarily is after they are born. And what I was very specific about was the care that they receive after they're born, not necessarily medical care that they receive immediately after they're born. And I can agree that I would like children to have medical care, if needed, immediately after they were born. But again, I haven't seen the bill specifically you're talking to, so I can't specifically talk about it because we're having a disagreement. I thought I saw the bill. You're saying I didn't see the bill. So let's just, unless we want to do a reading stream for the next hour, let's just agree to move beyond that. Beyond that, right? We can talk about, again, the child tax credits, the tax benefits in general, as well as like free lunches was a big one that Republicans were not super happy with in comparison to Democrats. Free school meals and things like that, social welfare in general, giving money to parents, single parents, and things like that Republicans quite universally do not like in comparison to Democrats. All of these things, I think, are sufficient evidence to show that Republicans do not have a good regard, or do not care very much about life after birth. That after you are born, they will not provide you money, resources, or tools for you to be able to properly live your life in the circumstances that would necessarily arise out of abortion being illegal, such as single mother households.
Can we stop there for a sec?
Yeah, of course.
So school lunches, right? Republicans oppose the federal government being at all involved in the provision of school lunches, and rightfully so. I mean, just like Republicans generally would argue, we ought not to have a Department of Education. The federal government just doesn't have a proper role in K through 12 public education. But on the other hand, Republicans at the state level, right, they do advocate for school lunch programs at the state level to be paid for through local taxes and state taxes. All right.
Can I respond to that?
Scope of,
or would you? Okay.
Just one sec. Go. Arguing about the scope of authority of the federal government is not an indication whether or not people like babies, want to care for babies, or care for children, or otherwise.
Okay, so I disagree. And the reason why is because when we're talking about rights that may be enshrined, or privileges that might be enshrined to people over a federal landscape, or over the entire nation, why are we prioritizing things like free school lunches, which are of very little to no consequence as to whether or not it falls under the state's authority, in comparison to more pressing problems like economic issues? If what you're trying to say to me is the only thing that we really care about is whether or not it's federal or not, Well, no, what they care about is they don't want to give free school lunches in specific areas. That's what they want to do. They don't want just the right. They want to avoid paying for free school lunches inside of certain jurisdictions. It's not just because it's federal and doesn't belong to the state. It's the same exact thing that we saw with abortion. Do you really think that most Republicans are just want to avoid it being federally ubiquitous as to the legal nature of abortions, or do you think that it's primarily the areas where in which the Republicans reside, where in which they want to make abortion not legal, that they are doing it? It is obviously, not only have we objectively seen right now actively happening, all of these areas that these Republicans were pushing for abortion to be made illegal, or at least not federally legal. These people are making it illegal in their local areas for you to be committing to acts of abortion. So I find that to be unsatisfactory.
Can I address those 2 points?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So it is important, right? So, and this is where we get into the ideological differences between Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, right? Is how we view the government and the role of government in our lives, right? Democrats see government as a tool to enact all sorts of things that they believe are favorable to human beings. Fair enough, no problem. Republicans, though, have a very strong sense of where the authority to do these things for human beings ought to be exercised. And therefore, it is a legitimate argument on our side to argue whether or not the federal government, one, has a role, an authority to do something, or it does not. And that is an argument that occurs regardless of the subject matter, regardless of the policy questions at hand. All right. So, to your question about abortion, now, granted, I think abortion is an exceptional issue because of the high levels of ignorance around it, where you conflate Roe and the judicial rightness of Roe and its companion cases versus the abortion issue itself, the act of aborting a child. Those two things get conflated way too often and just kind of pervert the whole conversation around whether or not, one, the court should have ever decided Roe as it did, right, as a constitutional exercise of its authority, or it should not have, right? Now, the fact that the states, right, now empowered, because we've abandoned Roe, we've reversed Roe, now the states are empowered to legislate in the specific area of abortion. This doesn't reflect some jurisdiction-specific preference, right? The Republicans aren't arguing about providing school lunches to inner-city kids versus suburban kids. Right? No, the Republicans are arguing whether or not people from across the country should be taxed in Texas to pay for school lunches in Massachusetts, right? And whether the federal government ought to be extracting that money from people in Texas to pay for something in Massachusetts. That's a legitimate argument that has nothing to do with the rightness or wrongness of providing school lunches.
Well, for half of these places, you understand the school systems are getting their you understand their school systems are getting their funding for a lot of their programs locally through property taxes, right?
Of course they are. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
whether
why
it's
are you
sales
saying
taxes, property taxes, or otherwise? Yeah.
Okay, so then why are you saying that for these federal programs that you're paying it for? Do you think that, like, because we have federal guidelines for education, that means every place in the country pays for everyone else's education?
No, but when the federal government disperses dollars, right, from the general fund to states, you literally are having dollars from Texas paying for something somewhere else.
I legitimately don't know how often federal funds are used for local lunches for schools. Is it not through their municipalities? I'm pretty sure it's through the municipality.
Well, about every dollar of money that goes to paying for K through 12 education in America, about 8 cents comes from the federal government. So about 8%, right? So that money, since money is fungible, money is being dispersed for a whole wide variety of things from the federal government, whether it's for curriculum development, whether it's for school personnel resources, whether it's for technology expansion and improvement, and school lunches.
So then you're arguing for a fraction of 8% then?
Well, no. That's regardless of how much, right? Because in every instance where federal dollars are being used to pay for something, right? A dollar from Washington State is being paid for 40 cents of something in Virginia. I mean, the point is not that we're arguing about fractions of a dollar here. Your point, right, was by at the national level, Republicans opposing the federal government paying for school lunches at the K through 12 public school level, that they're demonstrating a lack of commitment to life after birth. I'm disagreeing with you because that is an argument about the scope of federal responsibility and authority, whereas at the state level, Republicans are actually supporting
So I don't think it is
school-provided lunches.
And the reason why is because if it was, you would pick something more significant. You'd pick something.
School lunches.
So yeah, the reason. The reason. No, I'm saying you would pick, as in the Republicans would pick something more significant, not something that's a fraction of an 8% drop inside of that thing. Not a fraction. And by the way, we're talking about a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 8% when we're talking about how much.
This is why I keep telling you that Republicans at the state level are not proposing to reduce the availability of school lunches.
No, what I'm saying to you, though, is the expansion of school lunches and school programs and stuff like this. They're either being gutted by Republicans or they're not being supported by Republicans when we're talking about the expansion of these things. That's what I'm telling you.
I'd love to see some examples of that. I mean,
Okay.
now it sounds like we're talking in some highly abstract context where, in Missouri 4 years ago, there was, a state bill to expand free school lunches or something? I mean,
we could talk about any host of things. We could talk about the child care and stuff like that comes from various different proposed programs from the Democrats, and we could talk about any of these
doesn't
things.
matter, right?
Well, the reason they're in regards to what we were talking about previously. I'm not trying to use what is proposed by the Democrats as being an example of the Democrats being good. What I'm using that as an example of is Republicans laser focusing on specifically childcare when in their rhetoric and things that they're saying is that you should be responsible for your kid. And so these are the reasons why they're striking down these things is you should be responsible for your children. You should be responsible for how, you raise them.
I don't see us striking down these things, though. I don't see this wave of child-centric laws across the country being struck down.
So then, in the hopes of avoiding getting into just a Google battle back and forth,
no, I hear you. I mean, I'm generally interested in this narrative because it's regularly trotted out.
So then let's do this back and forth. Which party do you think has been responsible for passing more legislation that provides child tax credits and gets single mother welfare, child welfare in general, foster care funding, orphanage funding, things like that? Which political party has passed more legislation in regards to funding and support for those programs, Planned Parenthood, things like those? Which one has passed more funding and support for those groups?
I don't know. I mean,
really?
I'm not. Now we're relying on now what you're doing here is you're relying on a set of presumptions based on inferences based on past history of behavior.
Okay, so then let's break this down because I worry we might not be being intellectually honest. Which political party do you think supports Planned Parenthood more? The Democratic Party or the Republican Party?
Repeat the second part, I'm sorry.
Which party supports Planned Parenthood more financially and systematically?
Planned Parenthood performs the most abortions across the country. How are they reflective of a commitment to human life?
Do you know what else? Do you know what else Planned Parenthood does? It gives medical procedures to people that cannot afford it, not just abortions. They provide individuals
a minority of their activity is devoted to that. In fact, they don't even provide mammograms, despite repeatedly saying they do. But nonetheless, wait a sec. Are you really suggesting that support for Planned Parenthood, right, demonstrates a sufficient commitment to life after birth?
It is one of them.
No,
absolutely.
Because like you just said, they're providing health care. Republicans support the 10,000 community health centers across the country.
Do you know how many Planned? Wait, hold on. Wait, do you want to know how many?
So why not use that?
Okay, we can use whatever you like, but then I'm just going to count. We can do this back and forth. Do you know how many Planned Parenthoods are around the world? Do you know how or around the United States? Do you know how many Various
less
different
than
charities.
CHCs.
Do you know how many various charities that Democrats support for worker strikes, worker unions, individual single parent
Wait, we're no
funds?
longer talking about babies and children now.
So
Now
no,
we're talking
okay.
about
So then
workers.
let's talk. Well, the reason you just gave me a nebulous charity. You didn't just give me a specific children's charity.
These are federal community health care centers. These are federally funded community health centers.
Wait, if they're federally
There's
funded,
over
I'm
10,000
paying
of
for them. What do you mean? How is that a Republican thing? I'm paying for them then. Why would you use a
I'm not saying
federally
it's
funded
Republican
thing?
I'm saying you don't see Republicans trying to gut these things.
Wait, I'm not saying that
You
Republicans.
said Republicans are trying to gut these things across the country.
I'm not saying Republicans are trying to gut literally every single thing that helps a kid at all.
Oh, well, so it's only some things, and because
Yes.
of some things, then they have
Yes.
no commitment?
Yes, there is. Yeah, child tax credits, maternity
that's just
leave.
an asinine way of looking at this.
How? There's very specific, very critically needed things. Like, hold on. Maybe we can start because I don't want to get into like Bill 6382, and I want to get to that point where we're just doing a Google fight and trying to figure out who's this. Which political party do you think supports welfare disproportionately?
Supports welfare in what way? What do you?
Let's go single parent welfare.
I don't see Republicans trying to reverse or repeal existing laws.
That's
there.
not what I
do
asked
see
you.
Republicans trying
Hold on.
to slow down the rate in the increase of spending on welfare programs.
Okay.
That's nothing like trying to repeal these programs or gut them, to use your word. So what are we really talking
again,
about?
this is very clever. That's not what I asked you. Which party is pushing, advocating for, passing more legislation that advocates for like single parent programs, like so that will enable single parents to be able to afford having a kid?
Republicans are pushing those kinds of laws that include work requirements. Democrats aren't. There's
Okay,
a fundamental difference.
again, hold on.
Go ahead.
So are you intellectual? Do you believe you're being intellectually honest when you're trying to say to me that Republicans and Democrats are both pushing the same welfare-based, like single-parent welfare programs at the same rate? You believe that?
I'm not actually arguing this.
Okay, so that's been my. I've asked you three
You're
different
trying to
times a
invent this
simple question.
context where one party is more active in expanding something, and that is what tells us whether or not Republicans are committed to life after birth.
It's
That's
because
just a nonsense argument.
No, it's because I live in America. I live in the real world. I know that political parties have very specific things that they push to their political bases. Like I could tell you, Democrats are overwhelmingly disproportionately pushing against for gun legislation in sort of the United States, and Republicans are overwhelmingly pushing against it. I can actually give you that answer, but it feels like every time I ask you about this specific thing, you are not able to give me a similar answer. You're trying to say, well, technically, your response would be something like this in me responding to the gun legislation.
So
well,
let me try
technically,
again then, Billy.
Democrats are actively trying to put restrictions on what the Republicans have restrictions on when it comes to gun legislation. That's not what I asked. The simple question I asked was, which political party pushes for more welfare of parents of kids? Which political party does that?
I don't know.
In earnest, you are saying you do not know.
No, because right now, again, what you're trying to do is rely on a supposition or implication that because one party is promising to do all sorts of shit because they're politicians, which was something that you appealed to earlier, you're trying to then argue that one party is not sufficiently devoted to X. And that's just a nonsense argument. It's just nonsense. Let's go back to your gun example, right? Even though Republicans are pushing back against Democratic proposals at the national level for gun restrictions, they do so because we've seen these measures to be ineffective at reducing gun crimes.
This is
But
just
what
not
you would
true.
say, what you would say is, oh, wait a second now. That means that Republicans are just in favor of more people getting killed by guns.
I never said
And that's
that.
bullshit. That's an idiot. No. I'm saying using your logic, that's where you would arrive.
No, my
That
logic would
Republicans
say
don't sufficiently value life
just
to enact more gun
just to be correct.
restrictions.
My argument would be that they would be agnostic, excuse me, apathetic or complacent. That would be my argument, and I personally believe that. I believe there are many Republicans that are complacent with the amount of people that currently die inside of the United States. They think it is justifiable and okay. And that is true, yes.
Based on what?
Based on their lack of ability, based on their lack of desire to do anything. Hold on.
Wait, no.
Hold on. Then let me ask you. Then let me. Then let me ask you. Let me ask you this question. Somebody that does it. Somebody that is saying that recognizes all of the gun problems that we have, all of the killings that we see with guns, that refuses to pass any legislation. How can you not say that that person finds that the amount of gun violence that is happening to be satisfactory or okay if they refuse to do anything about it? Why would I care about you saying, oh, yeah, gun violence is bad if you do nothing about it? I don't care. You're a loser. I don't care. You're a degenerate. I don't give a fuck. Right? If you want to say that, that's fine. If you want to own that position, hold on, excuse me, because maybe you're missing some context. Because I am personally of the position that I'm for guns. I'm cool with guns, right? I believe there is a certain amount of deaths that will be expected as a result of this position. There will be an amount of people that I will have to go, this is an okay amount of people dying per year to gun violence, and I think this is satisfactory. There is going to have to be that point as a recognition of me being in any way pro-gun. This must be the case, right? In order for you to be pro-gun at all. If you do not think that is the case, you do not understand your position, and I'm sorry, you need to go do some reading or thinking on your own. If there is going to be guns inside of an area, there will be shootings, there will be killings, there will be murders, and you must cope and deal with a certain level of that before you begin with your advocacy. I am recognizing that. But the problem is there are Republicans that say we are currently at a point that is satisfactory as a result of them not wanting to do anything about gun reform and them not wanting to do anything about background checks, them not wanting to do anything in regards to that would actually lower the rate of homicide with firearms. You understand that, right?
Can we stop there for a sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. I appreciate you trying to correct what I was trying to impute to you. Look, I also agree with you that the presence of firearms always means there will be gun-related violence, whether it's murders or robbery, whatever. Okay, we've established that. I think what you're doing is not reasonable or rational in saying that, okay, look, because Republicans oppose expanded background checks, because we've demonstrated that background checks are not preventing existing gun violence. Right? We know this as a fact, right?
But that's not true. Oh, sorry. Continue. Excuse me.
That opposing expanded background checks, right, it does not demonstrate that Republicans somehow don't care about the number of incidents or don't want to try to reduce the number of incidents, right? The expand, and to your point that, that look, enacting new laws to reduce the number of incidents. The problem is that your supposition, and it's merely supposition, is that these additional laws will reduce the incidence of these things. And we don't know that. And we don't know that precisely because we see a lot of what's being proposed in Congress has already been enacted at the state level. And what we see at the state level is no reduction in gun-related crimes or violence or murders or anything else related to firearms. So Republicans then rightly say, well, look, why layer from the national government onto the states yet another layer of bureaucratic momentum and regulatory requirements and standards when it's not working at the state level? That doesn't display a uncare or a dispassionate or disinterest view of gun violence and the victims of gun violence. No, it's actually questioning the efficacy of the public policy.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Please.
Okay, so first things first, it's not about whether or not I think you are implying some level of condemnation that is there that is not. My condemnation is reserved exclusively for losers and degenerates, and I will say that always. They are degenerates to society who try and say that they care about the victims of gun violence but refuse to do anything about it when it comes to looking into the efficacy of any of these things. That's who I believe are the degenerates.
Okay, I need to stop you right there. One sec. You just pivoted to looking into something.
No, okay, no.
Wait a second.
So
We're
you
not
need to
talking
finish.
about
You need to let
evaluating
me.
the
You need
efficacy
to
of
let
stuff.
me
We're
finish
talking
my.
about enacting laws.
Yes, I know. And so you need to
Okay.
let me finish. You need to let me finish my thought. So these individuals are degenerates. Those are the people I was referring to. The reason why I brought those people up specifically is because I think when you heard me say losers and degenerates, you thought I meant anybody who was not passing laws. That's not what I believe.
No. I didn't. But go ahead.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
then I don't understand our problem here. What I just said, and that was the spiel that I went on. If you think that we are at a level where in which we cannot pass any laws that will realistically lower the rates of gun violence inside the United States of America, then that so be it. You just don't. It is to your knowledge that is currently not the case, right? You're not a degenerate in my eyes. As I've stated, there is going to be a level that we get to that is that. At worst, I might call you dumb. Because I'm personally of the opinion, and I've seen information alluding to the idea that background checks would actually prevent some shootings, not all shootings, not nearly all shootings, but some shootings, particularly mass shootings, of people prior to it occurring. So it would be preventative in nature for some of these people. I'm not going to make a claim of a deterrent because I believe the information on that is still out. But I believe that to be the case. If you are taking that position, that you think that this is a sufficient amount of laws for the amount of guns in the United States, you believe this is the amount of guns necessary to be able to prevent tyranny or whatever the basis with which you have for our Second Amendment right, then so be it. You can own that position. But I think the degenerates are the people who are actively saying that they want to reduce the rates of people dying from gun violence who do absolutely nothing about it, who don't go to the voting booths about it, who don't look into any of these problems. Those are the people that I think are degenerates, not the people who are like, yep, you know what? I've looked into it. Doesn't seem like there's sufficient evidence to show any of this stuff can actually lower the rates of it. So it is what it is, but this is the rate that it is. I hope it gets better. That's a separate group, even if I think that they are ignorant to it. But just to be clear, it feels like every single time I talk about any problem that Republicans are having, you're just assuming that I am making the claim that Democrats are morally superior on the given topic. Again, not everyone has to be like for the most part, I'd say I disagree with the Democratic Party, who's probably pretty firmly anti-gun. I would say I'm in opposition to the Democratic Party there, and I don't think they're like morally superior on this issue, but it feels like that's what you're constantly appealing to in regards to.
No, not at all. I could care less. I could care less about the comparison between Democrats and Republicans and who's better than who. What I was taking issue with, as you noticed from my very first comment, was what I think is a false narrative about Republicans and whether or not they care about children. And you focused your point far more narrowly than what I heard you initially say, which is, you think Republicans don't care because they're not actually enacting laws at the national level, to which we can argue about the reasonableness of that kind of test, but which also I think you need to accept the fact, the reality, that even without passing laws at the federal level, Republicans are not reversing or repealing existing laws at the federal level. They are proposing their own laws. They are proposing expansions of existing laws, and they are active at the state level where where people like me think most of the work should be done, not from DC, not from worthless politicians in DC, and they're equally worthless bureaucrats that are also in DC and vicinity.
I don't know. I just haven't seen very much legislation coming from Republicans, even on the state level. Maybe it exists, but based on all of the visuals that I see, it seems like blue states are the ones that put up the most effort to restrict the sale distribution.
How do you know that, for example? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I didn't let you finish your point. Were you talking about guns?
So, yeah, based on the...
I'm sorry. You were shifting, and I didn't let you get to
So, hold on. So, no, I mean, we can... No, that's fine. We can just get there. Do you disagree that blue states have more restrictions on firearms than red states? On the state level? Do you disagree with that?
I don't know. I've never looked at the states
really?
to do a kind of macro comparison.
Wait, are you a... No, okay, I'm not going to ask if you're a firearm owner, but, like... I feel like this is Firearm Owner 101. You can't buy half the shit you want to buy in California. Like, it's renowned for being dog shit to own a firearm in California. Like, it's renowned for being fucking wonky. Well,
California has, I mean, California, sure.
Washington as well.
Yeah, California is a restrictive state, but you were asking on the whole, do blue states have more gun restrictions than red states? And I'm being honest with you, I don't know, because I've not attempted to purchase a firearm in every state, and I've not actually looked at every state to evaluate what the level of restriction looks like.
So
I can, though, I can agree without looking at these things. I can agree with your supposition that, yeah, probably blue states are more restrictive.
Okay, so this is the problem that I guess that I'm having, is when it comes to issues that I feel have been very clearly demonstrated to the individuals that are watching politics, it feels like we're getting friction like that. Like that blue states have more restrictions on firearm sales, distribution, and the types of firearms that you can own being really wonky. You can have shotguns that are listed as pistols. You can have SMGs listed as rifles. You can have rifles that are listed as handguns. It is wonky. Some of the things that you will see that are listed as certain things inside of certain states. It is ridiculous. It's crazy. But I feel like this back and forth thing that we're having here comes from a disagreement. I'm not sure why this is happening, but I feel like even the simple thing of like which political party passes more welfare in general is just being fought over when that's completely unnecessary. Like, this should be known by anybody who's watched the news, let alone. Like, we could just talk about anecdotally which political party complains about welfare more. And that it's like 100 million to 1 conservatives to conservatives to Democrats. It's not even close, right? The individual party that is for a long time has put itself in a social position against free things in general, outside of what would it be, like policing and things like that, emergency services, free healthcare. We could talk about free fucking almost anything you can think of. That political party is the Republican Party, and it feels like I'm pulling teeth to be able to get that concession out of you. Like, would you agree with me that the party that is actively trying to push a public option is the Democratic Party in comparison to the Republican Party? That the Democratic Party is trying to push a public option more?
Now that you've brought some specificity to it, no, of course not.
What do you mean? Like, you agree with that statement?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course, Republicans are not pushing for a public option. Of course, Republicans are have been arguing for and proposing reforms to a variety of different welfare programs to help improve their effectiveness, because we see how ineffective they have been at actually pulling people out of welfare.
Okay,
right. So
I can
again,
deal with that.
That you would use that criticism of existing welfare programs and rightly criticizing them for their ineffectiveness, right, at accomplishing what they want to accomplish. You're using that as a signal that, look, Republicans don't care about welfare, and they don't care about welfare recipients.
I feel like I'm finally talking to a Republican. I feel like just now the Republican entered the chat with me. Thank you. That's what it was. Because you just said something that nearly every single Republican says, which is, yeah, I'm opposed to welfare because it doesn't fucking work. And that's what I expect you to say. You're a Republican. You don't think that this is going to work. You don't think that when I give a single mother money that they're not going to spend it wisely on their kid. That's what you think.
No. You're way off you're way off right now. What you've just done is imputed something to me that I didn't actually say.
Okay, so then great.
When we argue that existing welfare programs are ineffective, that is not an argument to abandon welfare generally.
Okay.
That is an argument to reform welfare, to either reform what exists, modify what exists, or to introduce new welfare programs. And that might actually mean not having national level welfare programs. That might actually mean having state level programs.
Can you provide me one state level welfare program that Republicans have passed?
Oh, I can't do that off the cuff. What's the point of that question? What does that demonstrate? That I can't answer that question because I don't know.
Because I think anybody that has looked at politics knows that the way that this song and dance works is simple. Republicans are always...
No, you're not going to do this. You're not going to go, this is a song and dance, and this is how it works. No. You demonstrate to me that Republicans have not passed any state level welfare
I can't.
programs.
Do you
or
understand how
activities.
you understand how I logically can't do that, right? I can't prove to you something doesn't exist. How am I supposed to prove to you a unicorn doesn't exist?
So then demonstrate that Democrats have been the only party to pass state level welfare
I can talk to you about the things that Democrats have tried to put through that Republicans have blocked.
But again, we have to go back to your point. Trying doesn't matter.
No, okay,
so that
you're sure, correct. I could talk to you then. I could talk to you then about the funding that has been increased to federal programs. I could talk to you about how the Democratic
Republican support.
Not really.
Yeah.
No,
Yes,
not really.
really.
I could talk to you about the things that are Democrats have pushed for independently that have gotten in place. We could talk to you about the expansion of the what's it called? The COVID-19 relief for individual families. We could talk about that if you'd like. We could talk about the Republican. We could talk about that would
demonstrate generally
focusing on lower income individuals to give specific tax credits or money to for COVID-19 relief. Giving trying to specifically target.
I know what you're referring to. I'm asking you, how is that example about an extraordinary measure, right, happening during an extraordinary event? How does that say anything generally about Republicans, either nationally or at the state level?
It's that Democrats disproportionately will give money to poor people.
No. It's that Democrats will propose doing so.
No, they
didn't. We've seen this for decades. Oh, okay, look, what is the typical talking point nowadays about Democrats and black people in the United States? Decades, generations of promises broken, right? Okay, so if we're going to rely on Democrats talk about this more,
no, I mean they
have a vision. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't actually tell us anything demonstrable about Democrats or about Republicans.
What are you talking? So if we want to talk about decades of promises, we could talk about Obamacare and how it helped millions of black Americans get health care that didn't otherwise have access to it. We could talk about it not being the greatest healthcare program in the world, definitely had its problems. We could talk about millions of people who didn't have healthcare having access to healthcare.
Wait. So what you're trying to suggest now is that the Democrats successfully passing ACA, right? Somehow magically erased the last 5 or 6 decades of promises to the black community, and that today contemporary black community leaders.
Why are we talking about specifically the black community? I'm just trying to say things that Democrats have led.
I'm trying to demonstrate to you that while Democrats talk about and promise, right, and express a vision for, right, they're not following through. This is why you earlier said talking about or even just merely proposing something is not sufficient evidence of a commitment to something.
Did the Democrats pass the ACA or no?
Yeah.
Is that not a legislation that was passed?
Yes, it was. So what's the point then?
That Democrats pass legislation that help poor people.
Yeah, so do and they do so with Republican help. Just like Republicans propose and pass laws that also help people.
Okay,
so
give me one that helps poor people.
Oh my goodness, we want to go digging back into voting records now?
Oh,
okay. No, I mean, what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, hey, here's the ACA, and from that, we're going to now deduce that Republicans don't actually support any of this stuff that I'm saying they don't support.
Can you tell me why Republicans... Hold on. Can you tell me then why Republicans gutted the ACA? If they supported it so much and it was hand in hand with the Democrats, and it was actually the Democrats and the Republicans who passed the ACA, why did the Republicans... Why did they gut it?
One, I didn't say that they heavily supported it.
Okay, so it was
I did say that Republicans are voting in support of these laws, right? Which at a minimum demonstrates at least a divide in the Republican Party and among Republicans. So you can't therefore then argue that all Republicans or that Republicans don't or that Republicans do. It's the same thing with the child tax credit.
Okay, I think
income tax credit.
I think there might be a disconnect here where you think I'm talking about every single Republican that exists. I'm talking about generally the Republican Party does not advocate
generally
for
who?
Shit like that.
Then we're talking about this inanimate object called
No,
the
we're
party.
not.
Yeah,
It's
we
not.
are,
It's
because
not
you
an
just dismissed
inanimate.
talking
It's not
about
an
people.
inanimate object. We've already made agreements on certain things before this conversation had even started that Republicans support broadly and Democrats support broadly. Democrats broadly support very restrictive gun legislation. Republicans do not. This is things that we are able to appeal to. Just like how Democrats support very broadly welfare programs for poor people. Republicans do not. Republicans support the maybe perhaps
Doing
state
exactly
subsidies.
what I just said you were doing, and that's taking this idea that there is a broadly that something is happening broadly, right, on one side, and then you extrapolate that to mean that Republicans generally, right, don't support X or don't support Y.
Can you give me any federally passed program for after birth care that Republicans have pushed? Or excuse me, passed?
No, I can't. And that's merely out of ignorance. That's not a confirmation that it hasn't happened. And I don't believe that you have an exhaustive memory or that you have an exhaustive set of knowledge here, right? That says Republicans have never done or generally does not do.
No, I have a series.
I think you have an ideological narrative here, right? That relies on broad assumptions of what people support, and then say, well, yeah, but Republicans don't do this. Look,
Well, I mean,
if
okay, sorry.
if babies don't warrant governmental protection in the womb, right? Then why do they warrant governmental protection outside of the womb?
Are you
like
is
you to
that,
answer that question.
me a question? Because I believe
Yeah.
that individual can become a working, functioning product of society after that point, and that's our responsibility to maximize the opportunity that that individual has to meet their potential. I believe in equality of opportunity. Everybody should have the same opportunity, but of course, this will not result in the same outcome. I think people should be able to have the right to school. I think people should, so education, the right to health care. That's what I believe people should have the right to have. And I believe in somebody's right to abortion because I don't believe that it's the state's responsibility to hold you at gunpoint to go through a pregnancy. Pretty simple.
I think you missed the point of the question, which is if a baby doesn't warrant protection inside of the womb, right? Then why does it warrant protection outside of the womb?
I answered your question.
And from that,
okay, sorry, go ahead.
And from that, then why is it that to insist that babies do warrant protection inside the womb means you have to, right? You have to align with and support what Democrats propose as legislation.
What? What is that second
All
bit
the
you
argument
said?
from your side is that, look, you don't support all of this Democratic talk and Democratic action to expand welfare or expand health care or expand union rights or everything else. And therefore, it's hypocritical then, right, to insist
No, I never said
that
hypocritical.
babies deserve protection in the womb because you don't want to care for them after the fact.
I-
But what you're saying is that to demonstrate a commitment to caring for babies after the fact, you have to align with and you have to propose policies similar to what Democrats advocate
Never
for.
said that. I said you have to propose any.
No, of course you didn't say those words. But what you're doing is that if you don't,
hold on, let me
if you don't
respond.
get on board with expanding
May I
welfare,
respond to what you said?
as Democrats propose we do, then you don't actually care about
No,
babies. After
it's because I've yet to see, and you've yet to provide any Republican legislation that helps any child's life after birth. We've seen no expansion of the.
But I have. But what
excuse
you've
you,
done then is
excuse
said it
you,
hasn't passed, therefore it
excuse you.
doesn't count.
Yes, correct. It does not count because again,
that's
but
bullshit.
like you
That's where
said,
we
excuse
disagree.
you, like you said, politicians love to talk, and I'm not going to give them credit for just talking. I don't pay a politician to talk. I pay a politician to act. Weird for a Republican. I think you would understand. You just got done going off on an absolute rant about how bureaucrats don't ever get anything done, but you think it's okay that they just talk and never get anything done? I personally prefer when people act. So I'm not going to give them credit for talking. They could talk all they like. I don't pay them to talk. I pay them to do shit. And so that's where my excuse me. That's where my federal tax
that is doing something.
And yet you've yet to provide me, nor have I yet to see any kind of substantial or policy at all in regards to care after the birth. We're talking foster care. We're talking support for single parents. We're talking about support for parents in general who have a kid, especially a kid that's been forced to be had.
That says only enacting it in Congress counts, right? That you will ignore the entire rest of the environment right? Whether or not it is actually proposing legislation that would do any of that, you just ignore it because
how am I ignoring something that you could? How am I
point.
ignoring something that you have yet to provide an example for?
No, I've provided multiple examples, but what you've done,
None of them have passed. You have yet to provide one example of passing.
What you've done is said, look, if you cannot pass a law doing these specific ABC things, then Republicans are not interested in any effort to help newborns or their
You know what?
mothers or
I could.
family.
You know what? I
That's
could
what
agree
you've
that.
done.
You know what? Then I. You know what? I can agree with that being obtuse, and I can amend my statement. Democrats care more because they actually get it done, and Republicans just like talking about it.
You were attempting.
No,
to
your state.
For
I'm not. I'm not attempting to.
Democrats are better than Republicans.
I'm not taking.
You thought that's how I was approaching this.
No, what I'm saying is quite simple, right? You are trying to make the argument that Republicans care, they just don't ever get anything done. And then so I'm just making the argument. No, because you have yet to...
Your narrative is wrong.
No,
that is false.
And that you're saying that because I do not have examples, and you do not have examples of Republicans passing any policy, comprehensive legislation that help care after birth. It's not like no, it's not. It's not a narrow. No, it's not. If Republicans are ineffective at passing federal policy, then what the fuck do we pay them for? They're a bunch of losers. No wonder you believe all of the feds are a bunch of bureaucratic losers, because you look up to people like this, clowns that can never get anything done. I actually care about getting things done. That's why I'm a Democrat. That's why I side with people that actually can get things done federally, that can get things done ubiquitously, universally across my nation. Not people that like talking the talk but can't walk the walk. No wonder you're a Republican.
Really, you're being obtuse.
There is no
obtuse here because you understand how legislation actually gets enacted. You understand that there's a huge volume of bills introduced that don't even make it out of committee, that don't even make it to the floor, that don't get voted on, and when they do get voted on, don't get passed. And what you are then trying to say is, look, well, hey, we recognize that you tried to put something forth, but it didn't get passed. Therefore, you know what? You don't care about that issue.
So I
don't care about it at all.
I want to hear from a Republican that the point of a politician is to talk and not pass laws. So I want to hear from you right now, a Republican man. Tell me that what's important is talking and not actually getting shit done. So I would like to hear that from you right now.
That's not the point.
Because that is the point. Because I'm talking about I'm talking about federal officials. I'm talking about federal officials getting shit done, not paying mouth service, not doing whatever the fuck you're talking about. It's ridiculous.
And then you're deriving from that a general belief, right? You're saying, okay, because you couldn't get something passed, then you don't support anything. And that's just bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. What you were trying to do is to say, look, no matter that you introduced a bill, no matter that you actually took the time to formulate a bill, to get public support for it or congressional support for it, anything else, because you didn't get it passed, you don't care. That is what you're doing.
Okay, so then I want to hear from you. If Democrats are able to pass policy about welfare, and Republicans also care about the welfare and well-being of people who are like parents, new parents, and care after birth and stuff like that, why can Democrats pass the legislation, but Republicans can't?
Are we talking across all public policy issues and matters?
No, we're talking about this specific issue. Let's just stay on topic of what exactly I just asked you. Why is it that Democrats can pass policies for care after birth, but Democrats can, but Republicans can't?
So this is my thought on that. One, I have a very cynical view of politicians. It's very easy to give away money to people and create dependencies on the government. It's really easy to do that. What's really hard, and this is why that's why we're not seeing anything happening with Medicare or Medicaid or Social Security, is because you can't touch those. That's political suicide to do so. You recognize this just as well as I do. Okay, so it's very easy to give that money away. Furthermore, Republicans aren't interested in piling more law and more regulation on top of failing law and failing regulation. That doesn't make any sense to do.
So
there's a rational basis for not piling on top. That's why Republicans continue to insist that if we do anything in welfare, we reform what we have.
Okay, so then why haven't they passed anything?
Well, you don't. Okay, so Democrats oppose adding work requirements. Yes? Yes, they do. Democrats oppose adding drug testing requirements. Yes, they do. This is why it's not getting passed. These are two solid examples of why they don't get passed. So from that, we can deduce then that Democrats do not care, right, about helping welfare people or helping welfare programs be more effective at helping people because they keep opposing Republican efforts to reform them.
Why would you have you understand that for half of these things, the reason why they don't want work requirements for half of these given things is because people might need to spend time with their kids, or they might need to be at home with their kids, and that's the reason why they're doing this, right? This is a difference of political thing. Again, you're talking about restricting already existing stuff. Again, my example for what the song and dance thing that you objected to so much was Democrats will propose some kind of legislation, social funding, social spending legislation, and then Republicans will detract from it. They'll never expand to it. They'll detract from it over and over again under the simple, we've seen it a million times before, and I cannot believe that you're doing this in good faith if you genuinely believe otherwise, under the idea that either one, these people are lazy and don't deserve extra.
No. That's garbage. This is garbage that Republicans think welfare recipients are lazy. The problem is that welfare programs...
First things first. First things first. That is objectively ahistoric.
It's not objectively
hold on.
Historically true or anything.
Do you believe the welfare queen thing came out of nowhere? Do you think that's just that's
you know what
nothing?
The welfare queen thing means? Do you know what that means? It doesn't mean that they're lazy. It means that they become dependent on the government. That's a bad thing.
What does dependent on the government mean in that context?
Dependent on the government for money, for the ability to live.
And
that's
why don't they get a job?
Well, there's a variety of reasons why people don't get jobs.
No.
These days,
why does the welfare queen, why does the welfare queen not get a job?
There's a variety of reasons why she or he would not get a job.
I believe you are I believe you are being intellectually.
No, they could be disabled. They could, right? They could be.
So you believe? So wait, then you believe that they were calling disabled people welfare queens? You think they were calling disabled people? So then, what do you mean they could be disabled? They weren't calling disabled people welfare queens. You're being obtuse. You're being intellectually dishonest.
They were calling disabled people. You asked me why people might not be getting a job who are on welfare. I'm answering your question.
No, when you're saying that they're dependent on it, and when we're talking about the welfare queen idea, it is enshrined in history. We know why it was happening. It was happening to specific groups on the basis of them being lazy and wanting to cash in on government checks of hardworking Americans.
There's no truth there at all.
Okay, sure.
The dependence on government is a criticism of welfare that Republicans have had for decades. Do you think it's a good idea for people to be dependent on the government for their livelihood?
I think it can be, absolutely. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think it can be just fine.
That's insane.
No, it isn't. We're talking about...
Why would you want so many idle, unproductive people?
I get this.
Oh my gosh.
Listen to yourself. Idle and unproductive people. I can want people to be dependent on the government for a certain period of time until they can get on their feet. I was that way.
Until they get on their feet.
Yes.
There you go. And what's happening with these welfare programs? Are we seeing millions of people
I am a product of the welfare system. What do you mean? I'm on my feet. I started earning my own living. What are you talking about? I'm paying taxes.
Oh, that's a great anecdote.
What do you mean an anecdote? Do you think
over the last 50 years?
Wait, do you think that everybody that's on welfare stays on it forever?
Have welfare programs reduced the number of people in poverty in the United States?
I don't think that welfare. Hold on, excuse me. I don't think welfare programs were explicitly made to just be the sole solution to poverty. I don't think that's ever been the case for somebody, unless we're talking about what you're referring to, which is some politician paying lip service, which I don't give a fuck about.
They're classified as anti-poverty programs. This is what welfare is.
Wait, weird. It's almost like an anti-poverty program doesn't solve all of poverty alone. That's weird.
Oh, is that how we're going to discount the ineffectiveness of these programs? By saying, well, by alone, they can't do it all by themselves. So
why do you think
we ought to just keep doing the same thing over and over?
Do you think Scandinavian countries are a bunch of Fucking, let's talk about
I don't
Norway.
care about them.
Oh, okay, well, it's very, very interesting. It's very interesting.
300 million people
Put together, they get pretty damn
they
close.
Have 50 states?
Yeah, we want to talk about Germany,
No.
France. We want to talk about all these places. Put together, they're well over 300 million people, and they seem to be doing just fine.
Wait, now we're
with
talking
robust.
about Germany and France.
Yeah,
we were talking about Scandinavia.
they say they have similar social welfare programs, buddy. Keep up. All right. So where we're talking about countries that have robust social welfare programs, it seems like they don't kind of just run into the ground. It's kind of weird. It's almost like social welfare programs can work. It's bizarre.
Social
right?
welfare can work when they are actually formulated and developed in a way that they work.
So
now,
maybe
are you telling me
maybe we should take
that in
inspiration from there?
Our current programs are working in Scandinavia, but we just can't figure out how to make them work here? Of course not, because they're different.
Yeah, there is.
programs.
What? No,
and
wait.
Republicans
Hold on.
are proposing
Can
different
you
ways
Can you
of
name
doing
one
welfare.
program that they have in Scandinavia that we have here in the same way?
No.
Okay, so
What
then
you're
what do you
trying to
mean?
do,
We
though, is
aren't
say, hey,
trying.
look at-
We aren't
No,
trying
stop.
Scandinavian programs.
What you're trying to do. Oh, so right. Okay, so if Republicans were to say abandon and repeal existing welfare programs and replace them with Scandinavian type programs, what then?
I would say based, but they're literally going against that. The public option is one of the fucking systems that is prevalent inside of Europe right now that is working, functioning incredibly. The public option.
It's great when you
but
have
hold
10
on,
million
excuse
people.
No, it isn't. Again,
Yeah, it's great when you have 10 million people. And go to Britain, for example, go to Britain.
This is what
where
I mean by
women have to wait and can't even get into labor and delivery rooms. I mean, that's great. Or let's go to Canada.
Hey, do you know that there is state
where hundreds of thousands of people come to the U.S. for basic health care and for surgery.
Nobody comes here. There's very little people that come here for basic health care that come from specialized health care. If you're talking about from
I'm
Canada,
why they're coming here for MRIs and CAT scans.
Wait, hold on. Just to be clear, you understand one of the reasons why they might come here specifically for MRIs and CAT scans is because that's one of the only. Excuse you. That's one of the only. Excuse you. First off, depending on the severity of symptoms, they will be fast-tracked down that line. So you're already off to a bit of a miss. Second off, when we're talking about, excuse you, you're interrupting again. So when we're talking about in America, you picked one of the only things that we specifically do better than most other countries, which is cancer. We handle cancer the best in comparison to a lot of them, but tremendous. Any of the others specifically.
Coming here for MRIs specifically? Do you know why?
Like one, because again, we have a better. What do you mean not one? I'm answering your question. What do you mean not one?
Why don't they have
yes,
those,
they
why
do.
Don't they have them
Wait, you thinking in Canada they don't have MRIs?
No.
What the fuck is
why
wrong
are
with you?
Canadians coming here if they have MRI machines there?
Maybe it's because their ability to get an individual people who Wait, hold on.
So do you think
that we have enough MRI machines in the United States if everyone who needed an MRI wanted to get one?
I don't know if we do or not.
We do not.
What I do know is that Americans are not waiting 6 to 9 months or more.
Maybe it's
MRI
because
or other diagnostic.
Maybe it's because half of us aren't even going to the doctor when we're sick because we're afraid of how much it will cost. That is the reason why.
Half of us are going to the doctor because it contributes to the overall healthcare costs in America, which are really high. It's really expensive. Right? It costs a lot. Right? It's because it's being used.
No, it isn't. The reason our healthcare costs are high is because we can't have a public negotiation.
Come on.
We can't do public negotiation. It's the universal thing outside of the United States that seems to correlate with the hike in drug prices. There's a reason why
Canadian patients come to the U.S., and that's because Canada rations healthcare, just like healthcare is rationed in Great Britain, in Scandinavia, and that works great.
Can you tell me?
That works great because it's free. I want you to tell me, why is it great to have somebody for basic diagnostic services like MRIs or CAT scans wait 6 to 9 months just to be evaluated, not even to get treated, but just to be evaluated? Why is that a good thing?
I never said that specifically is a good thing. Hold on.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that the expansion that we could have to our already robust fleet of MRI machines that you believe is infinite, we can absolutely bolster that, or even if it is that we end up with a 6-month waiting period or something to that satisfaction or whatever, I'm not somebody that believes in an exclusively public medical system. We could have private healthcare systems that set up alongside it. I don't believe in a
Germany has.
Yes, Germany has. Yes, like Germany has. Yes, and they have a public option, something that Republicans are striking down. You understand that, right? Those systems that you are quoting have public health care. You understand that, correct? That Republicans are actively against right now.
Here's the bottom
They are
line.
striking it down.
No. Germany can spend 1% of its GDP
Deal with
on
that.
its national defense and rely on
Deal
you
with
and
that.
I as American taxpayers
No.
so that it doesn't have to
No,
pay for
shut.
that
You're
and it can
trying this.
devote for
No,
cradle to
shut. You're
grave
trying
social
this.
programs and benefits.
Then what about China?
That's great.
What about China?
What about China?
They have better.
China
They
can
have
come tell
better. They literally have better, more robust infrastructure for public health than we do, and they spend a ridiculous amount on their military.
And from that we deduce what?
You just made the claim that in order to have a military we can't have health care, and I just gave you an example of
No, I didn't actually say that at all.
So then
I
why
said
did
it
you
is
bring
a
up the
great
military?
benefit that the American taxpayer subsidizes the national security and defense of Western Europe, and that they do not have
So
to.
then you're just speaking gibberish, and this is incoherent.
No.
So get back to the actual point.
No,
Germany
when I-
has a public health care system. Why don't we copy them? It's because Republicans are stopping us.
Yes, because it's a bad idea.
How is
Not
it a
because
bad
we don't
idea? It
care.
has better outcomes.
In what? Better outcomes in what?
Every
Access
single,
only.
every single
every single.
every single field,
what?
except
Like
for
what?
what?
Just
What do
name
you
one
mean?
example. One
Okay.
example.
Trauma, physical trauma, bodily trauma, like contusion, car crashes, and shit like that.
Okay,
Physical trauma,
okay,
blunt
stop,
force trauma.
Stop on that. Let's evaluate this for 1 second. Okay. Now, are you really telling me that we're going to evaluate the effectiveness of a healthcare system, right, based on the number of car accidents on the roads? Of course
Did you
not.
even listen to
Okay.
what I just said, you dumb
Did
fuck?
you say car accidents? You
I
dumb
said
fuck?
I said the response to car accidents, you idiot.
Whoa. So wait. You're
How-
gonna
what-
evaluate
like,
the
what are you talking-
effectiveness of a healthcare system based on how fast an ambulance gets to an accident?
You
site?
asked me for one example. Do you
That's
want
not
all of
efficacy
the
of a healthcare system.
Yes, it is.
Efficacy of a
How
healthcare
quickly you
system is
could get
actually
medical
the
treatment
treatment.
when you get hit by a bus isn't whether or not you have a robust healthcare system? Are you a fucking idiot?
Who's responding to the accident scene? Is it healthcare workers?
Yeah, it's hospital staff.
It's
What do you
public
mean?
safety workers.
Are you,
public safety workers, policemen,
the EMTs don't
EMTs.
the EMTs don't start doing
What?
surgery on
So
you
what?
inside of the ambulance. The fuck is wrong with you? You
Then
go to
why
a
are you
hospital
using that as an example of health.
because that's the public health care service. What are you talking about?
No. Responding to an accident scene is a function of public safety. For the reason you just said, we're not going to actually start surgery out in the field, are we? Of
You
course
go to
not.
a hospital that's publicly funded.
Right. Wait. Are you telling me? This is so wild. I asked you to provide one metric on how a public option system, right?
Yes,
has
responds better.
healthcare-
Yes.
Has healthcare outcomes,
Yes.
right? Better healthcare outcomes, and you said car accidents.
Victims of car accidents have better outcomes. Yes.
In what ways?
They're faster recovery dates, lower prices
Faster
for
recovery
individuals.
dates.
Yes.
Okay, let's see a source for this then. Come on. This is.
Are you
okay,
joking?
Yeah.
Okay, so like we could get the source if you want. I believe the only
Yeah, let's
the
get
only
source.
sure.
I mean,
I
this
believe
seems to
the
be right at your fingertips. So let's
yeah,
see it.
I believe the only metric that the United States outperforms other countries on is, like I said, cancer. That's the only thing that they outperform, to my knowledge. So we can get that.
Typically, what's brought up, and one of your chatters did this in chat, is stuff like infant mortality, life expectancy, and there's a third one that's really popular to be brought up, and then the fourth is the one that I mentioned earlier on, and that's access to. And that is one that I will concede to you is that yes, when there's a public option, then there is greater access to the provision of healthcare, right? And when I was asking you to provide examples of better healthcare outcomes in a public option system relative to ours, I expected you to bring up things like treating cancer, right? Treating other major illnesses, treating severe injuries, right? Things like that. But you went to accident response times, which
No,
just
I never
threw me
went
off.
to accident response times.
Well,
what I went to
no,
is
that's
the
what you
no,
said,
no, it
how quickly
wasn't.
they get
But
there.
it's interesting how you don't hear me properly. What I said
heard
was
you, and that's why I'm
outcomes
giving you back
as a
the words you
result.
used.
That's very interesting. You try outcomes as a result of like a car crash. The everyday things that you would need as a result. So outcomes of a car crash, going in to the doctors just for a casual checkup, for figuring out what it is. Most Americans will not even go in because of
right.
how much
And I
cost.
concede that point. I concede that point. I don't know that public option will necessarily fix that, right? Because someone has to pay for it. Okay. So I'll concede the access point. That's the relatively new fourth factor that's generally brought up, and I'll concede the access point. Although, I mean, nothing really prevents people from. Well, let me retrace that. People can access healthcare in the United States fairly easily. The problem is, as you keep bringing up, is the cost of them individually.
So no, that it results in a lack of access to healthcare. You understand
right?
That,
Because
right?
they self-select not to go.
No, it's because they can't afford to go. Like you saying
because
that
they can't afford, they choose not to go.
So right. No, the difference is you're trying to load that in a way that they're actively making the decision not to go.
No, I'm being totally good faith here. I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to say that the individual choice is somehow corrupting the process. Not that at all.
It's saying because they cannot. Yes, they cannot afford to access the healthcare.
Yes, that's why they don't. That's why they don't pursue.
I linked you a series because I was trying to find you something that wasn't just a billion words. So I linked you a series of graphs that show its placement when it comes to all of the metrics you listed, and we are doing abysmally compared to many other developed countries.
Where'd you put that?
I linked it to you directly on Discord.
Okay. I just click on. Forgive me, I'm an idiot when it comes to Discord.
You scroll up, and then there should be a message coming from me.
So,
yeah,
I got it. Right. So, like the first thing that shows up is life expectancy, right? And life expectancy is an exceedingly poor metric to use to evaluate effectiveness of a healthcare system.
Cool. Scroll down to the next. It loses as well.
I know.
You can keep going. Like on every single one of these barometers, America doesn't do well.
And here I'm trying to provide you a rationale why the first one that's listed is not a good one. I guess you're conceding that, or
no? What I'm saying is, I want you to go through all of these.
The first metric is a bad one, precisely because unique to the United States is, for example, the number of traffic fatalities, the number of suicides. These things are not at all linked, right, to the effectiveness of a healthcare system.
But you could compare the rates of you could compare the rates of suicide. I'm pretty sure the rates of suicide inside of South Korea is higher.
The rates of suicide is irrelevant because life expectancy in the U.S. is due how we rate against other countries on life expectancy, right? We rate poorly primarily due to the large number of traffic fatalities and the large number of suicides, neither of which is a function of the provision of healthcare services in the United States. That makes sense, correct?
Give me a second.
And the same thing with
Korea has more. South Korea, which has dramatically more better healthcare outcomes or life expectancy, has more suicides than we do, like 20% more, like a lot more.
Okay, and
so do you want me to look through all of these? What do you mean?
But does South Korea have the same number of gun-related deaths, of traffic fatalities, of which are huge numbers in the United States? I mean, come on now.
You understand the overwhelming, I think was it over 50% of gun-related deaths are suicides?
I think it's half, right?
Yeah.
Just
I don't know.
half,
maybe
right?
maybe it's half. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
okay.
It's like...
So I mean, you've pointed out something that South Korea has more suicides. Okay, that's fine. But what about the other 50% of deaths in the U.S. that are due to firearms that just come from gun violence?
Well, clearly it's not that many because half of them belong to suicides, and we still have less suicides than Koreans.
Okay, the argument here isn't about whether or not we have less suicides than South Korea.
Well, you made the argument of suicides.
What I'm explaining to you is why life expectancy, as a measure of healthcare effectiveness in the United States, is a bad measure.
No, it's one of the measures. It's one of the tools you use.
No, And I'm telling you why it is a bad measure. And I think this is easy to grasp once you evaluate that. Look, fatalities as a result of firearms, as a result of traffic fatalities, and other non-health care related uh, uh, circumstances, right? Those things tell us nothing about the effectiveness of health care.
Oh, they absolutely can, especially if we look at them over time.
Oh,
yes, we
goodness,
absolutely can. Excuse you. We can. We absolutely can. When we look at this over time, yes, we can.
Really.
We can compare it to other countries. Yes, we can.
No.
We absolutely
you're
can.
You're talking about life expectancy, and you're not listening.
No, I am listening.
For 1
You're
second.
trying. No, I just got done. You just couldn't stop talking for like 7 minutes straight.
No,
I've been listening to you.
What I
no,
said.
do you want me to restate what you said? Do you want me to restate what you said?
Again.
Oh my God.
Life expectancy is a poor measure because life expectancy in the United States is dragged down by a variety of factors that are disconnected from health care services. You must understand this. This is why life expectancy is a bad measure.
No, it isn't.
For the effectiveness of a healthcare system.
Oh, it's one of the tools that you use. It's not the only tool that you use, but it's one of the tools. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's one of the tools you use is not a rationale
absolutely
for why
is.
that metric is effective in measuring healthcare efficacy. Come on, man.
No, it absolutely is. One of the tools.
Here
I have. Are you going to stop interrupting me? Because I've done that a million times, but you keep interrupting me. Your incessant need to interrupt me.
Your argument right now is that life expectancy is a good measure to evaluate the effectiveness of healthcare services because it's a tool we use.
No, it isn't. I have not presented my argument because you keep.
said that.
No, okay. You're going to keep talking? Go ahead, keep talking. We're back to square one with you. Just keep going.
That you said it.
Just keep going.
Really, I'm reminding you because you seem to have forgotten 45 seconds ago what you said.
Are you done?
No,
you're not done. Keep going.
Okay, restate your premise then.
Are you done? You gonna let me talk? Okay. So it is one of the tools that we use, life expectancy, because life expectancy, especially when adjusted, like it is, for expected deaths as a result of specific activities, for specific things, when controlled for these variables, which many of them are controlled for very specific variables, you can absolutely find and ascertain certain discrepancies between healthcare and things like that amongst life expectancy, especially inside of localized areas. You could find it when you isolate these things. Life expectancy, the graph that I specifically linked you, this one, with its comparison to various different countries that are similar, absolutely what you would look for then is a country that is similar rates of either gun violence or gun possession, depending on what you want to look for. You could look for countries with similar rates of, what did you say, car fatalities and road fatalities and things like that. That's what you would do. That's why it's a list of several different countries. You don't just have America sitting out there with no other countries around it. It's that way you can compare whatever you want to compare it to for the various different countries that are like kind. That's the point of it.
I love the fact that you decided to back. Well, I won't say that's unfair, uncharitable. Okay, thank you for recognizing that life expectancy can be a good measure.
I never said. I listed you. I linked you I linked you a web page with 5 different graphs, and you think the only thing that I'm using is the first graph.
No, I'm simply addressing the first one that shows up.
What was the first thing I said to you when you said life expectancy was a bad metric? I said, okay, go on to the next.
And I asked if you were conceding then that was a poor way to evaluate health.
And it is not a poor way to observe health outcomes. However, it is not the sole way that you observe health outcomes. You use a combo because you clearly don't understand how data works, because this is starting to get very frustrating. You take a series of variables, a series of data points to be able to make an argument. You don't take just one and then say, boom, there you go, it's done. You take a series of data. This works with every single thing that you need to prove. There is not a single thing that you could prove just with one bit of data. You need multiple different ones to be able to build an argument. Outside of that,
no one's arguing otherwise, really.
Yes, you are. You're literally making the argument that I only linked this one because I thought this was the... Okay, then move on to the next.
As I said again, the third.
Then move on to the
next one. The same thing with mortality. So mortality rates as well suffer from the same problems as life expectancy does. Right? So if you want to show me, and this is what I was going to thank you for, is you went to, when you adjust, right, these measures to account for factors that are unrelated or disconnected from actual healthcare services, then the United States actually starts to compare very favorably.
Okay, then you know what? It sounds like you're appealing to some data. Link it to me. Because you just put me... Yeah, link it to me then. Because I could show you any host of data. I could show you the amount of people that die from preventable causes. We could get the preventable causes one, where people die in hospitals from preventable issues and the rate of them dying. Would you, or is that flawed in your mind?
No, I don't know if it's flawed or not. I'm going to drop it into your chat here. This link here from Academy Health. It's just the very first one that I found, where they adjust for based on car accidents, guns, and drug poisonings. Right? So the point is, yes, of course, you take multiple points of data to formulate an argument. What I'm doing is attacking.
Wait, what is this supposed to be? No, I asked you very specifically, can you show me the data that you have to say that the healthcare outcomes in America are better than the countries that don't have a universal healthcare system?
No, I said they compare very favorably to. I didn't say better.
Okay, even can you show me that? Can you show me that data as well? Because this doesn't seem to point to that. This just shows that one specific point, and I'm not like that's just one. I need to see a series of metadata.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Wait, you provided me a link for life expectancy exclusively after you just got done ranting about how life expectancy can't be the sole barometer that we use for healthcare outcomes. Yes, so I'm looking for healthcare outcomes.
That life expectancy, right? When life expectancy actually measures healthcare services related factors, the U.S. compares very favorably. You said, show me the data. I just provided you a link where in the third paragraph, it says this translated into life expectancies of X in other countries, and then the U.S. where there is a 2-year difference, which is a huge, right? Which is a huge difference between overall life expectancy and then controlled life expectancy. The U.S. then, like I said, compares very favorably on this particular metric. You asked me for it, I just provided it. But then you pivoted, backtracked, whatever to say, well, I need to see the metadata.
I didn't. I asked specifically for the data you are using to say that the U.S. compares favorably to other countries on healthcare outcomes. No, it isn't. You provided me something that talks about life expectancy. Did you not just get done on going on a rant about how life expectancy alone is not a good metric to look at healthcare outcomes? So why did you just provide me as evidence for America having good healthcare outcomes a article on life expectancy? This is just hypocritical. Just focus on the facts.
We were just talking about life expectancy. I said, when you control for life expectancy, it compares favorably. You said, show me the data. We were talking about life expectancy. That's why I showed you the data for life expectancy. Boy, why would I do that?
No, I asked you specifically, show me the data that shows that America trends favorably against other countries on healthcare outcomes. That's not what this is. And I don't even know who the fuck did this. I don't even know how accurate this is. You just linked me an article. Like, who did this? Who reviewed this? Like, you just linked me a web page.
You go ahead and look at it more closely when you have the time to look at it. Okay?
Can you tell me one other thing that they've done? One other paper they've published? Who even published this?
No.
Can you tell me who?
I just Googled this, and it was like the first link that came up. I mean, that's how easy it's to find.
No, why are you Googling this and just finding me the first? You understand that's not how you do research, right?
I'm not going to do in this moment.
I'm asking for what you're
worth of research.
I am asking for what you have used to base your opinion. What are you using to base your opinion?
Well, the last 15 years of thinking about this topic.
Oh my
And
God!
reading a variety of different papers.
Oh my
What do you
So
you want me to
link
go?
me one of those papers.
Wait.
Link me one of
I will go grab
reference me
another
one of
link,
those
and you'll say,
papers.
"Well, wait, you just grabbed me a link. What else
No,
have they done? You want me to then present?
so-
You want me to get a bibliography together? I can
No,
do
I
that.
just I know. I just want you to provide.
Well, that's
me
what
a
you
se-
just asked for.
No,
What
I
else
ju-
have they written? I mean, come on.
No, I want to know if you just linked me some random article for some random person. I want to
did just link you a random article for a random person that supports what I just told you. What the hell?
Wait, you
I don't
understand how
understand the problem here.
You don't understand the problem with linking a random article from a random person?
Wait a second. What did you expect? Me to do?
I expected you to link me a study that is peer reviewed with data.
Okay, so in a recent study in JAMA, 3 researchers set out to answer the question. Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't know what else.
Did you just say words? What do you mean?
There's a link to the journal the Journal of the American Medical Association.
Did you link something else? What do you mean?
In the link that I provided you, the page
Okay.
has a link to JAMA there.
Okay, let me take a look at it.
Okay, really, look. One, I'm not going to do this now. Where no matter what link I provide you, right? Your reaction will be the same.
I actively was trying to.
You just gave me a link.
Yeah, I was actively trying to avoid getting to this point, but you said you wanted specifically to go into the data, into the facts.
No. I asserted to you that once you control for different variables, then on this metric of life expectancy, the U.S. compares favorably. And you asked me, well, what's the data? I just threw a link at you. I mean, I didn't expect you expected me to take what is hours worth of research to compile a variety of different studies, right? And then to evaluate those different studies, and then give you and then summarize that to you.
Wait, just to
That's
be
not what I
clear,
thought my expectation
you
was.
realize the data that you linked me is pretty much identical to the data I linked you, right? That life expectancy of 2.2 years is the same amount that in the data I linked you, right? So you didn't even read the data I linked you. Because I'm looking at the difference in data here, and it's the same.
I'm looking at what you linked, right? I'm giving you an example of what happens when you control.
Yeah, and it's not
for 3
different.
important factors.
It's actually not different almost at all.
And it means, oh my goodness
almost no
gracious.
difference. What do you mean?
Well, then, okay, then why is life expectancy presented as a metric that shows the United States has such worse outcomes from its healthcare?
Because the link that you linked me, you understand in the link that you linked me, it said that the U.S. has a lower life expectancy than comparable countries as well, right? Even when you control for the factors?
Yes.
So what's the point of you linking me?
I didn't say
that?
the U.S. That the U.S. because compares more favorably once you control
It doesn't.
various factors.
It's off by like a third of a year. It's pretty much identical, bro. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Let me bring it back up.
It's literally off by like 0.3 of a year. Is this your bombshell that's supposed to shit on this data?
No, not you know why I presented it.
No, I
sure why you're
don't, because
characterizing it that way.
you're acting like the control changes the matter of fact. It doesn't. You understand? Even with that control, it is significantly
Did US
below.
life expectancy go up when you control for these non-healthcare related factors? Yes, it
By-
did. Does
by
that
a-
mean that the U.S. now compares more favorably? Yes, it does.
It's-
So in either case,
It's
then,
negligible.
then what we can
It's
conclude then-
negligible.
And what we can conclude then if it okay, then fine. If it's negligible, right, and the U.S. is within 2 years life expectancy, regardless of whether we control for these factors, then life expectancy doesn't actually show that the U.S. healthcare system is any better.
No,
or worse
now you're coping.
than
So
other
you
countries.
can't run
It's
it
not
back.
coping.
Wait, you're coping now because I
No,
just
now
called
I'm
you
just
out on
throwing
your
it back to
faulty
you that you
data.
can't use life
No,
expectancy. It
because
doesn't actually
you
show
were
any
just like
significant
life
difference.
expectancy is bad. Let me show you what happens if I control for all of these factors. And it was nothing fucking happened. And now you're like life expectancy isn't that big of a deal. You're
Do you think
coping,
it's
dude.
almost nothing or not? something did change, and the U.S. actually compares more favorably.
No, it's still below all of the. It's still below all of the comparable nations by at least 2.2 years. Sorry, by yeah, and they would be at least 2.2 years at most. It's still like 4. Like, you didn't change a damn thing. I would understand. I'd be a lot more favorable if it changed it by like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It's still below all of the competition. Like, when you control for all of these factors. So when you control for all of these factors, the U.S. has worse healthcare outcomes. Your link tells me that.
No, the link tells you that life expectancy goes up, right? The life expectancy measure increases for the U.S. when you control for these factors.
No,
what does that mean?
It says men in the comparison countries had life expectancy advantage of 2.2 years over U.S. men. Period. You're not even reading your own link, homie. Every Republican is fucking like this. Jesus Christ, man. We could have had a civil conversation, but you decided to link shit you didn't even read. God, this is frustrating. I am reading your link right now, and that is the quote from your fucking link. I'm reading the paper that is actually sourced from it. I'm not reading whatever bullshit that the author that you linked came from. I'm reading the source material, and that's what it says the results are. No, I'm not. You decided to link me something you didn't even read. You're intellectually bankrupt. You're a fucking loser, man. What are you doing? Well, no, stop. What are you doing?
It looks like what I did was made a mistake here by suggesting that the JAMA link was actually...
You didn't make a mistake. You didn't read what you linked me. You didn't read what the fuck you linked me, man.
I am copying to a mistake in suggesting that the JAMA link was his actual research. Instead, what has happened is that the link that I initially gave you from this person, whoever it is here that posted this, somebody named Aaron here, took the JAMA data and then controlled and found what I just copied and pasted into your chat for a third time.
So then you agree that what
so
you're
I made a mistake.
So then
you done sweating this?
So no, again, then you would be admitting to me that what you linked isn't a study, but some dude's opinion on a study that was already peer reviewed. I'm going to care about the peer reviewed thing that's been studied and tested and tried, not one random dude's opinion.
About sources is just nonsense.
It's not crying about sources. You didn't read what you linked, dude. You didn't read what you linked.
No, I did. What I didn't do was fully read the JAMA link that was embedded in there, and I mistakenly referred to it as his actual study and his methodology. I made an error, and then you just lost your fucking mind over it.
No, I'm losing my mind because you constantly link shit. You don't even read.
Link shit.
Okay, you have linked something.
I haven't constantly linked shit. So
you don't read what you link. What do you mean?
No. You don't get to impugn me with that. I did read. The other links that I have presented, like a text congressional.
You're actually fucking lying. What do you mean, dude?
No.
The information says the same thing.
You're trying to present a pattern of behavior here, really. Settle the fuck down.
No, the problem is even in the original link, in the original thing that you linked, it still shows exactly what I'm describing.
Oh my goodness gracious. I'm copying to a mistake, and you're losing your shit, man. Settle down.
No. I'm telling you.
You're trying to pretend that I have like this history or this pattern
of
just dropping links in that I don't read. That's what you just said.
You didn't read it because it still says what I'm describing.
The link that I initially provided you represents somebody's attempt.
Okay, can you read me?
Three factors.
Yeah, can you read me? Can you read me their conclusion inside of that link?
In 2012, the all-cause age-adjusted death rate per 100,000 people was 865 in the U.S. and 772 in the other countries. This translated into life expectancy 786 or 78.6 other countries and 76.4. The gap was about 2.2 years. Meaning the U.S. has a lower life expectancy. Yeah, no one's actually debating that it has lower life expectancy.
So what you?
The problem is that you guys use
you just lied to me again. You just lied to me. You said that the link that they're sourcing. No, you said that the link that they have sourced from was they were disputing that and that they weren't talking actually about that link. They were controlling for more factors. They just synthesized it. It's the same exact thing. Inside of the link that they listed above, it says 2.2 years. Exactly the same. It's just an abstract put on a web page. That way it's easier for you and me to read.
Really, you got to settle down here so that you can pay
No,
attention.
you need to learn how to fucking read, you goddamn loser. I'm fucking banning him from my chat. Oh my god! That is so frustrating. He goes from, I actually did read what was on that fucking page, to, oh fuck, maybe actually I didn't, oh fuck, I didn't. He didn't read anything on the page. It said 2.2 years lower for life expectancy for the people. Oh my god, what a fucking loser. No, you're banned. Stay gone, dude. Holy shit, you linked me something you didn't even read, loser.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and share to get more videos like this right in your feed.